what a devastating death toll yesterday. Israel must be in mourning for those 25 soldiers.
Yes, good to see you too, Vanessa. Israel is in mourning and in shock, and mostly I feel that Israel is in a kind of shell shock, in a situation of profound perplexity, bafflement. Israelis are, I think, finding it more and more difficult to understand what it is that they're paying such a heavy price for.
If Benjamin Netanyahu stands up on a podium or stands up in the Knesset and explains to them what he's doing and why he's doing it, what is his justification? He is continuing to say, isn't he, that he needs to eradicate Hamas, and it's only on the day that that is achieved that he will withdraw from Gaza, unless, of course, the hostages are returned. That's what he's saying, and he carries on saying it very trenchantly, doesn't he?
Well, not quite as clearly, I think, as you've just said it. Netanyahu has adopted a slogan, which he repeats definitely, as you say, very often. And the slogan is that Israel's aim is, quote, the total destruction of Hamas. Unfortunately, he hasn't described for Israeli citizens what that means. Does that mean capturing or killing Hamas leadership in Gaza? Does that mean disabling Hamas to the extent that it can no longer launch a single missile at Israel? Does that mean reconceiving the frontier between Israel and Gaza? There are many questions, and none of these things have been defined. This tragedy that occurred yesterday was just 600 meters away from the border with Israel. There's a feeling among Israelis that these soldiers were, quote, almost home, and that it's unclear, neither the army nor the government, for example, no representative has stood up today and clearly said, this is why we had to destroy the buildings. This is exactly what happened. Everything is being stated in broad slogans and vague aims, and given the difficult facts for Israelis, that the remaining hostages don't seem to be anywhere near home, that Hamas leadership is intact and doesn't appear to have paid any price, and that Hamas's infrastructure, while damaged, has not been destroyed. Israelis are now 3.5 months into what for them feels like a disaster, and somebody needs to stand up in front of them and explain to them what this sacrifice is for.
I mean, it did seem quite clear from the very beginning that the envisaged outcome was anything but clear. And at the very, very beginning, people were asking, how do you eradicate a philosophy? How do you eradicate a structure? How do you eradicate a structure which isn't contained simply within Gaza, but has tentacles that spread far, far, far beyond into the world outside? How is Netanyahu going to do this? How are Israel going to do this, and how will anyone know? How will they themselves know when and if they've achieved it? So there were these questions being asked. By evening of October the 7th, these questions were already being asked. And as you rightly say, it now feels like such an age ago that all this began. So is Netanyahu saying anything at all about any degree of, and I know people might not like this word, but is he saying anything about a degree of progress? Is he saying anything about a destination and a goal and how close or much closer Israel is to getting there? Or is he still being fairly evasive about what he really means?
Well, your questions are right on point. And Netanyahu insists on remaining evasive. And this is starting to have the effect of really, I don't know what the word is, but sort of making the people suffering from this most directly, by whom I mean the family members of hostages held in Gaza and the parents or loved ones of soldiers who've been killed in Gaza. It is beginning to make them unhinged. It's beginning to create, it's almost like you have the feeling a kind of just a psychological maneuver. So what happens, because he insists on being evasive and leaning only on these slogans that, as you rightly say, even on day one, did not describe a clear aim for this war, this has left a wide space in the Israeli public arena open for rumors, for conspiracies, for utter confusion. And we're witness in Israel these days to just absolutely bizarre scenarios like, you know, Carmela Menashe, a colleague of ours, if I may say, a military correspondent with 40 years experience, who goes on TV, on her channel, and says flat out, you know, the army has not received from the government clearly articulated goals. And so it doesn't know where it's going. It's not that the army isn't doing a good job on narrowly military terms. And of course, tragedies and errors happen in war. Everybody knows this. But I think this would be easier to assimilate for Israelis if they had an idea where they were in the progress that you just mentioned and what this progress is going to. And Netanyahu stubbornly refuses. This is also clearly causing now really ragged edges with the American administration that is, without question, Israel's top strategic asset, that relationship. And it's beginning to cause real wear and tear on Israeli society. I'm afraid that the cynics say that Netanyahu is doing this on purpose because in order to survive politically with his very fragile coalition, Netanyahu needs the war to go on. And there are even indications that the Americans are concerned about this. That said, as long as clear and achievable aims are not described for the army, Israel's likely to find itself in the same situation it's in now, just dragging on.
Noga, I'm going to stop you there, but I'm going to say how devastated anybody listening to this and watching you will be to think that so far down the line, this is the verdict thus far within Israel. It's you know, it's such a tragedy so far for everybody concerned. Thank you very much indeed.